what kind of game is this? It's like a shell game. And that's what's going on here. It's lying about the Jewish people, slandering the Jewish people, misappropriating passages in the Hebrew scriptures, and misleading people about the Hebrew Bible.
So who is Pastor Jack Hibbs? What's he all about?
He's big time. He's a Christian pastor in California. He's a founding pastor of a mega church. He's got a huge network, and he's also a very famous Christian Zionist, a real dispensationalist. But he's really into evangelizing the Jews, and he says some of the most outrageous things about Jewish people. And sometimes he peddles in a slander against the Jewish people. It's a strange thing, but there are many evangelical Christians who are very pro-Israel, but they'll say things about Jews or rabbis that sometimes are unflattering. It's kind of like Billy Graham, on the one hand, was very pro-Israel, but on the other hand, said things that were very odd about Jewish people.
Yeah, I saw recently a video about how he was saying Hitler had the right idea, but he went about it the wrong way. I don't know if you saw that video.
Billy Graham said in tapes that were revealed with Nixon that the Jews are the synagogue of Satan, quoting from the book of Revelation, chapter 3 and 2. And you can hear Nixon, another very interesting figure in history, who's like going, wow, yeah, but they're smart like the devil. So Jack Hibbs is a guy who's very involved in Jewish evangelism. And I think we should just take a look and listen to the kind of claims he makes.
Now, I know many of my Jewish friends will not even look or listen. You have been told by your rabbis you cannot read the New Testament. It is forbidden. Isn't it interesting, by the way? They also say that there are Old Testament chapters and books that are forbidden to you as well. Little bit of a test. Oh, my friends, please, I hope you haven't tuned us off yet. Isn't it interesting that all of the forbidden scriptures that your rabbis tell you not to read, every single one of them deal with the Messiah coming to rescue you and save you?
So that's a complete slander against the Jewish people. And slander is a sin. It's a very grave sin. It's untrue. The notion that rabbis or Jews or Jewish leaders, we have forbidden chapters which the Jews are not permitted to read. I'll be frank with you. It's the church that prevents its parishioners from reading the Bible in its original language. It's his church and churches all over the United States that do not teach Christian children the language in which the prophets of Israel conveyed eternal oracles to the nation of Israel. And they believe that the Hebrew Bible is the Word of God and the Hebrew language is sacred, yet they won't teach it. What he's engaging in is complete slander. There are no chapters or books in the Hebrew Bible that Jews are not supposed to read. And in fact, it's the reverse. It's Christians, I'm afraid, that know 3 chapters in Isaiah 7, 1 verse only, Isaiah 9, 2 verses only, and Isaiah 53, those 12 verses only. And slander is just, it's wrong. But I'll say this to you. What do you think this does to Christians who are watching this, listening to him? What are good people thinking about Jews when they hear that? It colors their view of the Jewish people. Go, oh, those Jews are engaging in some sort of conspiracy to hide the truth of Jesus Christ. And Jack Hibbs did not invent this method, didn't invent this technique. It's found in the Christian Bible, where the Jews are trying to hide the truthfulness of Christ deliberately, maliciously. It means the Jews are bad faith actors. It's not like when missionaries came to bring the teachings of the church to people in the African continent, so they don't believe in it because, well, they never heard about it. But the Jews know the truth, but we hide it anyway, and we bribe Roman soldiers to remain silent about the resurrection. So the damage that he does to he doesn't have to apologize to me or to you. He needs to talk to his congregation, say that what he presented in this Christmas message was reckless, it was irresponsible, and it just nourishes, it fuels hatred, because nice Christians watching him, and this guy's syndicated all over the place. He's huge. He's a big. People watching this are going, whoa, those Jews, they're the Jews today are doing the exact same thing that they did when Christ was alive and when he was executed. They're lying there, and he's peddling in this stuff, and it's completely not true, but it fits into the narrative. And it's, as I said, it's slander is a sin. This is Mitzi Shemra. This is a complete lie. We teach all the Bible. In fact, if Christians only knew the chapters that introduce Isaiah 53, as an example, if they knew Isaiah 40 through 52, they wouldn't be in the church. The only way they get themselves into this trouble is they're reading 53 out of context. So really, the forbidden chapters in the church are the chapters that introduce 53. You know very well, if Christians only read Isaiah 7, but not starting with verse 14, where they're told that Jesus' virgin birth is prophesied when the word virgin isn't there. If Christians read Isaiah 7, 1 through 13, the passages that introduce the famed Isaiah 7:14, they would all leave the church because they would know that Matthew ripped it out of context. If they would have access to the original Hebrew, they would know that Isaiah is not speaking about a virgin, but rather a young woman. Surprise, surprise, it's young women that have babies as opposed to old women. If they only read Isaiah 7:15 and 16, they would know that the sign is not the conception of the child, but the maturity of the child. And I'll say something, and somebody may not like it, but people specifically who are Christian Zionists, which Jack Hibbs is, they feel they can get away with this because they're pro-Israel. Israel needs evangelical support because, frankly, Israel can't depend on the European Union, the United Nations, for support. So because they're so pro-Israel, they can engage in this kind of peddling of a trope that's unflattering of the Jewish people to say, at least because we're pro-Israel, we support Israel, we can get away with this. If a Catholic priest were to say something like that publicly, they would be charged with anti-Semitism immediately. But these people feel like they, in a sense, use their Christian Zionism as a fig leaf. So it's really quite astounding. But he doesn't stop there.
If you're a Jew, you're going to get a bone stuck in your throat. Or you're going to find out that you have a pebble in your shoe, so to speak, right? Genesis 3:15 to the Jew is what we would say in English is a conundrum. It is a revelation of truth that demands that you accept it one way and one way only. I love this. God who speaks in truth doesn't speak with options. I mean, listen, he gives you the option to choose him or not. That's about it. He's the God of all truth. He's not the God of multiple choices.
Interesting. What do you have to say about that?
Right. So, I imagine for a moment a woman in Northern California, a fellow in Houston watching this, and he must think that there's some passage that the Jews would find so annoying that it'd be like the Jew has like a bone in his throat or a pebble in his shoe. Like the Jews are so terrified of it. It's really mind-blowing that and Christians must think that there is such a passage like this. And again, Jack is not pulling this out of a hat. This notion is also in the Christian Bible. This scam is in the Christian Bible that in John chapter 5, if you would have believed in Moses, you would have believed in me because he wrote about me. I mean, this theme is all over the Christian Bible. If only you would only read your Old Testament, of course you would believe. There are hundreds of prophecies in your Old Testament that all speak about Jesus. 365 prophecies. Here's the arithmetic. 365 times 0, the rest, equals 0. So what they've done is they're going, oh, there's this verse somewhere in the Torah, in the book of Genesis, when God is cursing the serpent, who in his view represents the devil, Satan. This somehow is a proof that Jesus is the Messiah. Let's watch how he does that.
We're going to dive into why are we followers of Messiah? Foundationally, it has nothing to do about the New Testament. It's all about the Hebrew Old Testament. It's all about Moses, believe it or not. That's where it all begins. That's why, by the way, allow me, my Jewish friends, hang on. Let me sneak ahead for a second. I know you don't believe this, but Yeshua, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but through me. Okay, John 14. If you go to Genesis 3:15 as a Jew, here comes the punch. Here comes the Christmas line, the Christmas theology. God says, I will put warfare, enmity between you, he's speaking to Satan, and the woman, that's Eve, and between your offspring, the seed, Satan's offspring, I'm going to put warfare between your offspring and her offspring. Now, the word in your Bible says seed. It's where we get the modern day term for us out of the Greek, and even the Latin is sperm or sperma. This is the seed of man, the seed of male. Male DNA, male. See, we have a problem here. From woman would come the Messiah of the world. You say, where do you get that from? Genesis 3:15. Look in your Bibles. It's capital S signifying from the Old Testament, from Moses himself, that the woman and from the women's from Eve's line, that eventually from a woman would come divinity. That something would happen regarding the woman not having sperm but an egg, that something would happen in a woman that from her seed, this is a miracle, you guys, from her seed, watch what would happen. That from your seed, he shall, watch this, he shall bruise your head. The word in Hebrew is crush. He, whoever the seed is a male. So you've got a female and her seed being male. Her offspring is of divine origin. It doesn't involve intercourse or a human male. There's a divine impregnation of a female to come in the days of Moses. To come, he will be divine. Whoever he is, my Jewish friends, whoever he is, Genesis 3:15, Moses said, whoever he is, he's going to crush Satan's head. But Satan will crush his heel. Stop right there. Moses said, A divine one will come from human origins of a woman, not a man. A woman, male. Not a male, female. Not a male, but from a female. In fact, excluding a male, but from a human female. The origin will be divine. The seed, capital S. Whoever he is, he will destroy Satan. Can Moses destroy Satan? No. Any of the prophets? Nope.
So this is how the scam works. You remember I said a moment ago that one of the things the church refused to do is teach the children the Hebrew language. If his church taught the kids who belonged to his congregation the Hebrew language, they would know immediately that his ideas about seed and capital S are nonsense. They're vacuous. They're silly as the charges he makes about the Jewish people hiding chapters and verses. As it turns out in the Hebrew language, there's no such thing as a capital letter. It doesn't even exist. And then I encourage people to read Genesis 3:15 and see if you find a divine Messiah born to a woman. The only thing he's got right is that in Genesis 3:15, God is speaking to the serpent. The Hebrew says, Ve'eva oshis beincha uvein ha'isha. I place enmity, hatred between you, meaning the serpent, and between the woman, uvein zaracha, between your offspring, uvein zara and her offspring. Now he's very deliberately translating that as seed. What is the game being played here? It's constricting the word zera. Zera means two things that are very germane here. It can mean seed. It can mean literal seed. But it also can mean offspring, physical offspring. So this is a complete scam. So what he's claiming, I think the viewers are wondering, what is he even talking about? So what he's saying is the word zera, which he doesn't even mention, but the word seed can only mean sperm, which means something only a man has and not a woman. Well, how could a woman have sperm? Therefore, it must be a virgin conception. It's total nonsense. Moreover, you could just see this just a handful of chapters later when the angel is speaking to Hagar, prophetically telling her about her own seed. In Genesis chapter 16, verse 10, Vayomer lo Malach Hashem, and the angel Lord said to her, that's Hagar, Harba arbe ezarech, I will greatly multiply your seed. That's Hagar's seed. So that means it doesn't mean seed, doesn't mean as in sperm, but it means her offspring. And you want to hear the craziest game that's played? People won't even believe it unless they look it up. If you take a New King James or the New American Standard, they actually play such a game here, you wouldn't believe this. So let's take the New King James. In the New King James, in Genesis 3:15, they translate zera as seed, but in Genesis 16:10, where they don't need this Christology, they translate it correctly as offspring. I'm not kidding. A few of them do this. They actually play this game where they translate the same word in Genesis 3:15 as seed, and in Genesis 16:10, it's talking to Hagar, they translate correctly as offspring. So this is what missionaries do so frequently. They constrict the meaning of a text. He doesn't even speak Hebrew, so it's mind-blowing, alters it. One other point I think should be made. If this is talking about the Messiah, because I know many of you, the viewers, are wondering, where is the Messiah here? What is he even talking about? Let's say I concede it all. I say, okay, this is really a veiled prophecy about Mashiach. And what's the prophecy? That the Mashiach is going to destroy Satan. You actually get this from Romans 16. If that's the role of Mashiach, of the Messiah, that he is to destroy Satan, then you have all your work ahead of you. This creates a You talk about a conundrum. This creates an unimaginable conundrum for the church, because that's just another thing that Jesus failed to do. He didn't destroy Satan. Satan was doing fine then, and he's doing terrific now. In the last century, he's been the biggest hit. So if, in fact, the role of the Messiah is to destroy Satan, as he suggests, that means Jesus can't be the Messiah. And that's what happens when you mislead people about the Jewish people and you mislead people about the Jewish Bible. You get yourself into so much more trouble. Because if the Messiah is supposed to do that, well, Jesus didn't do that, and he can't possibly be the Messiah. Change the meaning of words, and suddenly you have a brand new message. And I ask you this question: how do you change the Bible?
Yeah. You know what I find really fascinating? He made the allegation that rabbis hide these scriptures, and yet at the same time, you are the number one rabbi who is telling people, go out and open up and look for yourself. See exactly what it says.
Right. The key is always, what do I always say to people? I say, look it up for yourself. What do you say to people when you're teaching? Look up the original. We both wish that we weren't needed for this. Always go back to the original. Ask the question, why do you translate the word seed in Genesis 3:15, zara in Genesis 3:15, but in Genesis 16 you translate offspring? What kind of game is this? It's like a shell game. And that's what's going on here. It's lying about the Jewish people, slandering the Jewish people, misappropriating passages in the Hebrew scriptures, and misleading people about the Hebrew Bible and the language of the Hebrew Bible, which these churches refuse to teach the parishioners. Now you know why his church and other churches won't teach their children the Hebrew language. I mean, your kids could read Hebrew like a newspaper. Why? Because we want them to read the original, not take somebody's word for it. If you enjoyed this program, please like and subscribe.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא